Okay,
Yeah.
take a deep breath, enjoy the ride. What matters most to me, which is my wife, my kids, my spirit, my friends, smiling, laughing, hiking.
Yeah.
And so to realize that, I'm not just a visionary in my company, I'm a visionary in my life.
Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show that helps to teach you the art of crushing your goals and the discipline of loving your life while you do. I'm your host, Jason Skisic, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and I'm on a mission to share the stories of visionaries just like you. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and review. That's the best way to make sure that we continue to make more and more interesting content. This week's guest is Coach Bob Shenefelt. Coach Bob has been an entrepreneur and coach for visionaries for many years. He joins us this week to discuss how his company, iMatter, can help business owners to understand themselves and find new levels of success. Please welcome Coach Bob Shenefelt. Bob, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Jason. How are you?
Bob, you're one of those guys. I'm doing really great. You're one of those guys that you're doing so many things that I'm not going to even try. Bob, tell us a little bit about your businesses and what it is you do to serve people.
So I do three things. First of all, my target market is big time visionaries ready for and committed to exponential growth.
Okay.
And I help them in three different ways. I'm an EOS implementer for that target market. So a business operating system for big time visionaries. iMatter is our life operating system that we created for me as a visionary to keep my life on track. And then we have the Visionary Forum is a community of amazing visionaries. You're learning and growing. We also have a couple things under that, like the Visionary Summit and whatnot. So those are the three different things.
Yeah. And right off the page, I can tell you, I am somebody who believes in, but also has just gotten so much out of forums with peers, right? In my case, mostly masterminds. I'm not a member of EO, but I've been a member of other organizations, for my industries and have just gotten so much. Tell us, I'm very interested. I know you said you had a retreat this weekend. Tell us a little bit about some of that you guys are involved in.
So the Go to the Mountain is a retreat that I've been doing for 24 years.
Wow.
And been taking visionaries there for the last 10. And it's a 4-day deep dive spiritual retreat based on a lot of the teachings of iMatter. And our three uniques for that are connection, clarity, and conviction. So connection to other great visionaries, connection to the nature, the beauty, maybe something greater than ourselves, and then ultimately connection with ourselves. And then clarity around what matters most, who I am and why I'm here, and then conviction that we make a minor little shift that changes the trajectory for the rest of our lives. So it's a deep dive retreat. It's game changing, and I've been loving doing it. I do that twice a year now, but demand is picking up, and so I'm excited that we're going to be offering it more. So yeah, we leave tomorrow, and then we do our next one in November. We might add another one or two.
Wow. What mountains are you guys going to?
So it's outside of Boulder. We're based in Boulder. My wife and I lived there 25 years ago and tapped into a lot of the resources out there and the energy out there. So we're based out of Boulder, and then we go about an hour and a half up into the mountains from there.
Wow. Okay, so let's take it back a little bit. I like to hear people's entrepreneur origin story. So tell me a little bit about I've heard the word visionary a few times, which I love. And I think far too few people recognize that in themselves. We're rare enough as it is, right? And so tell me a little bit about your entrepreneur origin story. Where are you coming from? And tell me a little bit more.
So I grew up kind of going through the motions, getting through school, you get a job, you get married, cool. All right, get season tickets and whatnot for everything. And raised up through the company ladder through a international distribution company. And the farther up I went, I realized there was a greater lack of integrity and it just did not fit. So I saw a gap. Visionaries often will see a gap either for a service opportunity or for a process to be improved. And so we saw a gap. I saw a gap and started my own company to compete against the bigger company I worked for. Yeah. And I can sell and I can motivate. So I sold a lot of people and I motivate our employees. So we grew from nothing to 8 million in 5 years. Nice. And yet, as we were going through that, we were growing out of control. And I am not a process person. I'm not a managing person. And so I was very stressed out. And then through EO, which you mentioned, I've been a part of that for 25 years now here in Detroit. Mm-hmm. Our forum was the original founding forum here in Detroit. And that's been a game changer for me. And in that forum was a gentleman by the name of Gino Wickman, who's the founder of EOS. And he and I have become very good friends. And he was in the process of creating EOS at the time. And so literally I sold his first client and then became his third client. And he saved my life because I was, basically saying, I'm a terrible manager. I don't know how to run a business. And he's like, no, there is a place for you. There is a place for a visionary, which is ideas, relationships, culture, energy, problem solving. And yet most visionaries need a structure and a team. So he helped me to realize that I needed what EOS and he calls integrator, and then to put our leadership team together and then use the EOS simple process. And that changed my life. And he helped me to realize that I am a visionary, that I'm a brilliant visionary. And he coined me a flaming visionary, which my wife and I agree is very appropriate because I think everything's a great idea, which not my people and my employees think so.
Yeah.
So we grew that company, sold it to the German post office. We were a distribution company here in the States, sold it. And then being a flaming visionary, started 3 new businesses without a system or without the right team. I don't recommend that. And so then floundered for a little bit, but then went back into distribution and then reinstated an operating system, got a great integrator. We grew it again to about 10 million. And yet I was bored and it was kind of a commodity. So sold that 6.5 years ago. And my integrator said, why don't you become an EOS implementer? And I'm like, a flaming visionary teaching structure? That doesn't seem to make sense. But I actually like big time structure. And it made such a big difference in my life that I wanted to teach other visionaries as well. Along the way, through EO and many other things, there's been so many learning opportunities, a lot around business, a lot around life. And so my wife and I created a system called iMatter, which is a life operating system, mainly for me, a visionary that could be called scattered, could be called all over the place, maybe a little crazy. And so we had iMatter as well. And so, but I put everything on hold when I sold my business, went into EOS implementation, which has been fantastic. But then I realized, I'm here to help leaders to step into their greatness and to elevate the entrepreneurial spirit. So now I'm doing it with EOS and iMatter. And iMatter is the life operating system. And then when the pandemic hit a couple of years ago, I had a little extra time in my hands. And so did a few of my visionary clients. So we created the Visionary Forum, which is similar to EO in the fact that it's a peer group and that we have a forum like confidentiality. We have presentations, we solve issues, we're connecting for each other and with each other. And that has grown and that has become really a big part of what I'm doing now is creating that forum to help visionaries, not only where EOS helps the visionaries to take their business to a new level, I'm helping them to take their lives into a new level. So it's been a great ride and I'm still doing a lot, but it's all based around the same target market though. So which is kind of a refreshing thing.
Yeah. So immediately, first of all, that's an amazing story. When you say you had a distribution company, what does that mean? What does that mean?
So I was working for an international distribution company that would take large mailings and then ship it throughout the world and then remail it either in that country or in that region. And so they did a great job with that, but they weren't doing much with Canada. So living here in Detroit, I found that we could use these Canadian letter shops to do pre-sort there. And so I set up the Canadian distribution network with some help there and went to the company and said, this is a product and I want to run it. And they're like, whatever. And then when I saw the opportunity, I said, all right, I'll go do it myself. So I was a broker for these Canadian letter shops and pre-sort companies. But then as we grew, we wanted our own processes and structure. So then we set up shop here in Detroit. And we were mailing annual reports, recall notices, brochures,
Sure.
Princess Cruises sending out big things, but there was less and less mail happening. Mm-hmm. And it was becoming much more of a commodity. So that's when I decided to get out years ago.
That's very interesting. You said another thing that really hit close to home for me, which was you went from having it sounds like an elite team, a really great structure. You had EOS in place, and then being the visionary that you are, and I think we're more in common than I may have realized. You jumped right into 3 other things and you didn't have structure. Can you for somebody who hasn't been there, there's going to be somebody listening right now who maybe has a company that doesn't have an elite structure and they're still looking for it, or maybe somebody that does and is getting ready to do something else. I've been where you're talking about. So I'm very curious if you could help describe what it felt like to go from running a sort of elite team with a great system and then thinking you could just take it to the next level on these next 3 things. What was that process like? And how did it feel?
Well, it's interesting because I have a short-term memory often. So And I think I probably had a little hubris that I thought I can do anything because we had mastered that. So it's like, let's go do it again. And I kind of forgot about that. I needed that person next to me to be a sounding board and say, okay, that's a cool idea, but that's down the road, or that does not make sense. Or let's go integrate it and implement it. And so it was hard for me to grasp the structure at first because I did myself on being, winging it and being, creative and flexible and doing this and that. And that was cool, but I didn't always remember what I said. And so didn't other people.
Yeah.
So, thinking back, I think it was just kind of, again, so often looking forward and not breathing. And I'm still learning to sit where I stand for the very first time. Even right now, I've got a lot going on. And yet I'm learning that it's like, you know what, take the next year or two and capitalize on and really implement what we have in place. So I think, I was always looking for that next big deal and not celebrating and getting the fruits of what we created. Yeah, I already like I've got my book coming out in May and I'm already thinking of the next book. It's just like, okay, take a deep breath, enjoy the ride. What matters most to me, which is my wife, my kids, my spirit, my friends, smiling, laughing, hiking. And so to realize that, I'm not just a visionary in my company, I'm a visionary in my life. So to be honest, to answer your question, I didn't really make a conscious decision to say, I don't need a system or people. I just went for it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I'm teaching is take a deep breath and can it be implemented? Can you do it yourself or do you need help? And it's not cheap sometimes to hire a coach or an implementer or a system, but wow, is it worth it?
Yeah. I wish we had a small picture of like whoever your implementer was, because they'd probably be like, oh God, he just said we would go on to the next thing. You know how it is. They're like, no, there was so much more. I just want to point out that Coach Bob and I are the only two people I know who sit on phone calls with stacks of chips in our hands. I noticed you have a stack of poker chips in your hand. I do that all the time. I have a stack right in front of me. So tell me a little bit more about how iMatter has affected you personally. You talk about it being sort of a life operating system, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. So iMatter is taking ownership and accountability for my life. And even especially what's going on in these last couple of years, I was, getting caught up in all these things outside of my control and getting frustrated and to say, what matters to me? Why am I here? And who am I? And so iMatter, I've used a lot of different things, either from EO teachings or from other great leaders and mentors, and created a simple system for me, principles, practices, and tools where is my structure for checking in each morning and tapping into my head and my heart. And where am I at today? And shifting my mindset at the beginning of the day and having great productive days and enjoying my life rather than just going through the motions. So it's ultimately, we're creating a community around it, a common vocabulary, and it's a simple system that works. And there's many life systems out there. But in my thing, kind of like business systems, there's many. Choose one, be committed to it, and maybe hire a coach to help you. And the same thing on a life operating system is to, again, commit to one that works, that I'm excited about. And I see the value. The word discipline, I heard this a while ago, where that discipline is, I have to do this, or I have to work out, or I've got to meditate. And discipline is one of the greatest forms of self-love there is, that I'm committed to taking care of myself first. The stronger I am, the more I can help others, as opposed to running around and helping everyone else. And then I have a heart attack or a stroke or whatever it might be. And it's like, so the stronger I am, and it may seem selfish, but it's all about taking care of myself. So then I can be present. My new book coming out is called Unscatter the Chatter. And there's a lot of chatter coming in from the outside, which isn't all positive. There's a lot of chatter in here, which usually isn't positive. And so that's a lot of what's going on in my head. And then ultimately, the subtitle is Elevate Your Mind and Expand Your Impact. So to elevate my mind to the important things, what matters most to me, not the urgent day-to-day things, which I got to get to, or I can delegate those, but what really matters most. And as a visionary, to be in that space more and switching things from MI to I am and owning it. It's incredible what happens as I plan out my day. I have a great attitude. I'm doing the important things, not the urgent things. And it all works rather than being on that the rat wheel, the race, the wheel that goes around and around. And I've done that many times. And yet then my wife is saying, okay, so what about us? And it's like, well, yeah, you matter most, but I got to get these things done. So
Mhm.
basically taking care of the most important things first.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think if I'm listening at home, I'm probably wondering, what's Coach Bob's daily routine like? So talk to me about what is it that you do? I mean, without giving away all the secret sauce, what's your daily routine like? What's your practice?
So my Mondays, I spend 90 minutes. I call it I time, and
Okay.
I fanatically protect that time where I have a tool called the Take Five Check-in. I ask myself questions, I write it on the board, and then the why behind those things, and what's the root cause of it, what are the emotions behind, and then next steps. And so I see patterns that come out of it that are either things to do this week, things to delegate, potential blogs, but mainly tapping into my head and my heart. What's going on? And so I might be stressed. And as I do my take five, I realize I'm stressed because my son picked the wrong quarterback on his fantasy football team. And so he lost this week and he doesn't even care. And yet stress is stress. So
Mhm.
just to own it, recognize it, is it a real issue or not, or let it go. And so it really sets me up for a great week. I then do an audio to my team, which then shares in 5 minutes. That's why it's called the Take Five Check In. They hear what's going on in my head and my heart, and sometimes I don't even remember what I say, but then in our weekly meeting, they'll say, hey, there's an issue or something you can delegate. I'm like, where'd you get that from? Because I do an audio to my team.
Mhm.
So I've learned to be open and honest so they know what's going on in here and here. And more importantly, it's a safe space that I'm hearing what's going on. So I might hear a frustration is, cash is a frustration. I'm like, well, it really isn't, but that was the thought in my head. So then I start to realize and shift the conversation in my head. So that's what I do weekly. Then each morning I do a thing I call it the 331, and I take a couple minutes. I'm not a meditator, legs crossed, oming and whatnot. I have a hard time with that. But my meditation is just taking 5 minutes in each morning and thinking about and breathing to say, okay, what are the three things that matter most to me today? What are my top three impactful action items? And then what's my one if it were up to me? And often when I wake up, I'm like, oh, I have so much to do. And oh, I've got to call Jason. And I take a couple deep breaths and say, well, what matters most is my family. And one of the top impactful action items is to call my mom or send 5 letters of gratitude. So too often we're on the urgent things. So to take a deep breath, elevate my mind, and set up my day intentionally. And it's amazing. Most of my days are great. About 60% of my days are great. When I do my 331, which I'm doing pretty much every day now, it's about 90% of my days are great. So I'm
Yeah.
investing 5 minutes just to tap in what's going on here, what's going on here, take a deep breath, and then rock and roll. And then, each day is different depending on whether I'm doing a session for a client for their business, whether I'm doing blogs, whether
Yeah.
we're setting up the Visionary Summit. But those are two of my routines, weekly and daily, that have been instrumental in me breathing more, smiling more, having really productive days. So it's an and thing. So I'm more peaceful and more productive, which is kind of a
Yeah.
counterintuitive.
Yeah. I like that, man. That's really interesting. What about, you mentioned hiking. Have you done any like floating or sauna or breathing exercises? Is there anything, that somebody out there could try that maybe you've had some success with?
Yoga
Fitness?
is a big part of my life, and
Okay.
that is one of the few times that I'm actually breathing through my nose and taking a second to not be rushing. So it's kind of like, instead of a urgent day is okay, I got to deal with this employee, and it's breathing through our nose, and that actually helps me to realize everything's okay. That can wait for an hour, and I'm not enough time for yoga. No, when I invest time for that, then the rest of my day is calmer instead of running the whole time. I'm a big believer in saunas, a sauna several times a week. Sweating is a big thing for me. Walking and hiking, nature, being around water. So we lived in Colorado for years, and for a while I was bitching that we don't have mountains in Michigan, at least in southern Michigan,
Yeah.
but we have nature trails, and water is a big key for slowing down, tapping into the emotions. So there's a walking path that my wife and I walk with our dog, and just hearing the water, looking
Yeah.
at the water, breathing is a big thing for me to slow down and kind of tap into my heart. So those are really the main things that I've been doing. And then hiking ultimately is one of my favorite things, especially with mountains. There's an energy, a vortex. It's a little heavy breathing, exercising, elevation. So I not only have poker chips, but I've got a stone, and it's go to the mountain. So the mountain, okay, well, I don't have a mountain right now. It's a it's a mindset. It's a mantra to say, because when I'm on the top of the mountain, I'm like, everything is right with the world.
Yeah.
And so if I'm sitting here in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm worried about an employee or whatever, it's like, what would I do if I was on the mountain? And so I literally carry the stone with me to remind me I can go to the mountain whenever I want. And so it's just that mentality, and it's a choice, and not saying, if only I was there or only here. I'm here right now. What can
Mhm.
I do today? And breathe, smile, gratitude.
That's great. I was talking to my friend Will Taylor about this last week. I do a lot of thinking about mountaintops and mountains. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. I do. Yeah. And we live here in the Indiana Dunes, which is essentially Southeast Michigan. So we have our own little sand mountains here. So talk to me. I'm fascinated by this because, again, like we have a similar trajectory in some ways. What is your feeling about the transition from running a business that was, that was for commerce to the public, to then running a business that is in support or in helping other visionaries to actualize their businesses? What was that transition like for you as a leader, as a visionary?
So that's a great question. I used to think my job was to turn the crank. And then with an operating system and a team, I realized it was more of that visionary role. And yet pardon that, into this other thing, it was my purpose. It's my passion. I've been using the tools I teach on myself and realizing where I'm happiest is helping other leaders to get that spark and to believe in themselves and to go for it. So it was a big leap of faith because I initially was making a lot less money, which was in the past my definition of success. How much cash do I have in the bank? How many things do I have? What's my net worth? And to realize we talk about success with less stress. So what's your definition of success? So mine is a great fucking marriage, to have kids who are independent but have a safe space to be able to come and talk to us about anything, and that we're proud to be together, love to be together, and then teaching and being around people I love, and that's visionaries. And so to be able to tap, it's so fun, and we solve each other's problems, and the people that we're surrounding ourselves with like to help first. They're thought leaders, even if they don't always know it yet. And that's part of my gift, is to help people to simplify and to connect and to inspire them to say, this is what you're here to do. Well, I don't know how to make money on that. And yet I found when I'm not happy, I joke that happy visionary, happy life instead of happy wife, happy life. It's if the visionary is unhappy, the rest of the company, I'm going to meddle. I'm going to be the bottleneck. I'm going to micromanage. But when I'm happy, it all works. So to make that transition with trust and faith that it's like, this is what I'm here to do, it brings me joy. And that's success in freedom, helping, connecting, people supporting me. So it was not an easy one. And I put it off for several years because I'm like, well, how am I going to make money on it? And so to put the processes in place, test it, see if it makes sense, get my wife's buy-in. And she's like, I just want you to be happy. And when you're happy, it all kind of works. So figure out your passion, your why are you on this planet? What are you here to do? How do you do it? I call that your great gift. And then who do you want to hang with? And so to put that all in and have it be consistent has been huge.
Yeah. And this weekend, you're going to be sitting around a fire and you're going to be like, yeah, I made the right choice, right?
This is my heaven. Yeah. And and I have people been telling me that for years. I used to take people to the mountain and not charge them because I loved it. And I just as proud of it. And people are saying, dude, don't ever doubt why you're here. And so it is around nature, community, peers, growth, pushing, pulling, facilitating, and being vulnerable. So I do not have it all figured out necessarily. But I'm figuring a fair amount out. And then I've got some tools to help me. And then I'm sharing those tools with people. They're helping me. I'm helping them. And this is a crazy age. I feel like we're stepping into this new age. So we've hit the ceiling of complexity as a society. So a lot of divisiveness. What's going to happen? And to me, this is the year of the visionary. The visionary creates calm out of chaos and creates chaos out of calm. But it's now time for us to say, okay, so what is your vision as a visionary? And kids, what's your vision? With my kids, I'm like, where do you want to go to college? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? And they think they were like, I want to live near mountains. I want to be an engineer helping people. I want to be a baseball player, whatever it might be. So dream, have a vision. Then what steps can you take to realize that vision? And so that's where now I'm very optimistic about what's going on in the world, but it is up to, it's our time as visionaries to shine, to prove it's okay to live, laugh, and love life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, jump, it's not that far, have the courage. because why else live?
Yeah. And I would only add to that it's also the year of the relationship, right? Like there's so much information available to you and so much things flying at you all the time. Like how valuable is it to be sitting around a fire with 5 entrepreneurs who fucking get it? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm going to add, my very short list. And that is the list of people you should not hang out with if you don't want to start a business, because so far it's me, it's Dave Galbinski, and it's you. So don't hang out with any of those people unless you are ready to start a business. Because I feel like if I hung out with you, Bob, I'd have 3 businesses on Monday, and then you'd be walking me back down to 1.
And I'd probably be hiring you for 2 of those. Right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Speaking of which, do you have a coach that you work with?
I have. So it's interesting. I got a past client who is acting as my coach, as a sounding board.
Yeah.
But I'm actually in the process of finding my integrator. I felt like, it's not a big business. I'm not managing a lot of people. So I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. And so I have a 6 habits of a great effing visionary assessment. And if you go to iMatter.com and look for resources, you can take that assessment. And so I took the assessment 6 months ago, and I'm not walking the talk on a few of these things. So to me, a great integrator can be a coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my EO forum, which is kind of my, mastermind of entrepreneurs, my visionary forum, and the relationships I built there. But I do believe in having a coach. And so I'm kind of like looking for one right now to see what makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of having a business coach and a life coach. So I'm a big fan of that.
Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. I'm super excited that today's show is brought to you by the Global School of Entrepreneurship. Most practicing entrepreneurs cannot take 2 years away from their growing business to attend a full-time campus-based program or spend every weekend away from family and business for a couple of years. Finally, there's an accredited program specifically designed for you to work on and grow your business while completing your MBA. The GSE MBA complements the needs and schedules of someone actively engaged in an entrepreneurial venture while still covering the accredited curriculum expected from any MBA program. The Global School of Entrepreneurship offers a unique offering called the Mastermind to MBA program. It consists of 10 students who work together in a forum-style cohort and meet every other week for a year. The GSE MBA helps you develop skills in critical thinking and strategic planning. Students also develop competencies in leadership, decision-making, and communication with both employees as well as the important stakeholders in your business. You will be exposed to world-class academics and fascinating guest lecturers. You'll work on your business while working in your business. Students are guided by real-world entrepreneurs with decades of experience starting and scaling businesses just like yours. Best of all, I'm beyond proud to announce that the Global School of Entrepreneurship has agreed to offer one Spear and Clover listener a scholarship to join an upcoming Mastermind to MBA cohort. They are looking for someone just like you to bring a unique perspective to the program, and they are accepting applications right now. To learn more and to apply, simply go to www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Don't miss this opportunity to level yourself up and surround yourself with other like-minded entrepreneurs just like you. Once again, to apply for the GSE MBA Spear and Clover Scholarship, simply visit www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. Yeah, I agree. And to that point, I think number one, I certainly have had mentorship positions or relationships with people that have evolved over time where I could absolutely see, so there's somebody I can think of right now where they started as a mentor, or I was their mentor. And now we've become this peer situation. And then at certain points, I'll be getting mentorship from them. It's really just being held accountable by somebody you respect, right?
Exactly. And that's a big part of it. And again, EOS and iMatter helped me to mentor myself in a lot of ways because the tools are there, the scorecards are there. Another group that I didn't mention is my book club, which is Dino Wickman and Kurt Rager. We call ourselves the book club because we get together 4 times a year. We go to the mountain once a year, and we usually read a book ahead of time, and then we do a deep dive into it. And so that's been a great mentoring group. But as I go through iMatter, and when I hear myself speaking, I'm starting to mentor myself, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. So let's clear the table for a second and just kind of bring it, because I think you and I are having a conversation of very like-minded individuals. And so if I'm somebody listening and I don't have a coach and I don't have an operating system, and the business is either coming off the ground or maybe the wheels are falling off, just what's the first step that somebody could do today or tomorrow that would take them, because like you, they probably do have a lot coming in and a lot going on inside their brain. And so what's the first step that somebody can take towards, taking the right step towards a healthy visionary relationship with a great team?
That's a great question. So a peer group is huge.
Yes.
And so again, EO has been huge for me. The Visionary Forum has been huge for me. And having people around who we've given permission to each other to call each other out. Mm-hmm. My marriage has been fantastic, and we're still learning that we have the boundaries set where we can hold up the mirror to each other and not get mad. I used to be like, oh yeah, well, what about you? And so now it's like, oh, you're trying to help me. And and my wife only wants me to be in my greatness, and will point some things out. And so a lot of learning, letting go. It's letting go the book by, my mind's a blank. But so reading great books. And so one of the biggest things for my wife and I is we will listen to audios of a spiritual book, personal growth book, just for 5 or 10 minutes, a couple times a week, then talk about it and then go for a walk. And I used to run to work and get out of the house because that was my productive time. But now around what matters most is my spirit, is my relationship with my wife. And that has calmed me down. So I'm not as anxious. So that may not seem to be the first thing I might want to do to help with my team. But if I come in and I'm peaceful and I've got a different mindset, that's going to be huge. To, again, pick a system for your business. You can self-implement. There's several out there. I chose EOS because to me, it's the simplest. I love that community, but you can buy the book and get your team involved and empower your team to make a decision. So when I do a 90-minute meeting, we call it, with teams who are interested, so we'll explain the model and the process. And then what usually happens, because we tell people, okay, be open and honest. Are you interested? If you're not, that's fine. And what usually happens is the visionary says, oh, great, I'm finally going to get what I want. And the rest of the team is, awesome, we're going to finally get what we want and get the visionary out of our way. And we all step into our right seats. Because too often, too many people they don't really know who they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. So pick a system both in life and in business. Trust your team. Be open and honest. I felt when I really became a leader, I let down my guard and I was open and honest with them. And that's when I really stepped into being a leader and stepped into knowing who I was really at my business.
That was a really great answer. I would only add that, for the record, because I've tapped into a group of folks that have been on the show from Detroit, Gino and traction comes up and EOS comes up a lot. But I will say for many years, I have recommended EOS to my clients just as a book, not even as an implementer, not as any kind of a community. Just read the book Traction, as well as Alex Charfen and his work. He does a really great job. If I was going to do just the one thing, it would be read the book Traction or something that's equivalent. I don't know what that might be. And then the second one is, I think Alex is really good at kind of showing you where you're at in the progression of your business. He has something called the Billionaire Code. And so he can kind of show you the thing that I think Traction does a good job where everybody on your team knows what they need to do today to win the Super Bowl or to go to the Hall of Fame, right? And it gets it all in order. Alex is really great at showing you like, should I be focused on helping my team or should I be focused on grinding or should I be focused on my team helping me or whatever it may be? So those two things genuinely, I think I couldn't agree more. Go ahead.
Add to that, if I'm off learning all these wonderful things, and then I come back and say, "Hey, we have this great idea." I throw it at the team and leave.
Yep.
That's a flavor of the month. And so, to me, it would be empower your team to say, "What do you guys think?" And again, they usually want the structure. They want to know where they're going. They want to know what they're responsible for. So again, but to have them buy in, and then, as we say in EOS communities, let go of the vine. It's like let the team go. And I talk about in iMatter is create a safe space where they can call me out. Like I mentioned with my wife, I do that with my team. It's like, "Hey, Bob, you didn't get your stuff done last week. Okay, great. Thank you. And ask me for help and be open and honest. And don't wait till the day before something's due to say you're stuck and you don't know what to do. Bring it up early. Ask for help." So it's open and honest, empowering, being vulnerable.
Yeah, I was fortunate. The military taught me that. I always had leaders in the military where if they messed up, as long as things were done the right way, they would own up to it for the most part, unless they were just a bad leader. And in which case everybody knew. Right. To your point, you mentioned something about vulnerability. What I will say is I've coached a lot of entrepreneurs. I know a lot of entrepreneurs. And now in these deep dive interviews, I'm seeing it repeatedly. And I've seen it in my own life. And that is the more successful or the more mature of an entrepreneur or visionary you are, the more vulnerable you're willing to be without putting those walls up, right? I think that's such a crucial thing. And it's really refreshing to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always been, not always, often been vulnerable, but I think I almost didn't even know what I was saying. And so as I matured, I actually comprehend what I'm saying more and more. And even the progression of, especially men, we go through Prince, I forget the gal who came up with this, Prince, Warrior, King, Elder. And I feel in the last few years, I've gone through these last few and actually had a health event 6 months ago, which kind of rattled my cage a bit. And then through that kind of stepped into the elder role. But then recently it's all kind of collapsed that I'm still the warrior. I'm still the king. I'm now also the elder. And then I've added one thing, which is the kid. And so I don't want to be the elder sitting on, the couch telling people of the olden days. It's sharing my wisdom of what worked and didn't, still being a king and a warrior, but then also playing. I think a lot of people forget how to play. And especially for a visionary, where I've failed in the past, is I listen to people that says, "Oh, that's not the time for it," or "That's a silly idea." We need to be silly. We need to be goofy. We need to play and laugh. So that's been a huge aha for me, is to go through that progression. And like you say, definitely being wiser, not shouting into the chasm, slowing down a little bit, taking a pause once in a while, taking care of myself more and more.
So what I'm hearing too is that you have found a way to, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but it feels like you're operating from a position of want and what's right, as opposed to I need this thing, right?
Sure.
And so I think if I'm listening, because this came up in my conversation with Aaron Hind. Aaron Hind owns FitAid. It's a large, successful company in the fitness space. They're all over the world. Shout out to Aaron. He's an amazing human being and a great leader and entrepreneur. But he said, talking about being a made man, we're able to, at a certain point in your career, you're able to make decisions based on what you want and what is valuable to you versus what you need. So right now I'm 24, I'm in the 1-bedroom apartment and I need to make that hustle, Bob. And so do you think that it's possible to skip that phase just by education and wisdom and coaching, or do you need to go through that phase of need first?
It's a great question. I think it could be expedited. Shout out to my 20-year-old daughter, who is incredibly driven and has to get all A's and works her tail off in the Michigan marching band, doing this, volunteering. And through this pandemic, again, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. She sat back and taken a deep breath to say what matters most to her is hiking and playing music and helping little kids and volunteering on things that she loves to do. And she was all excited that she got a B the other day. And we're like, that's okay. So she, at an earlier age, is saying, you know what? I'm going to go do work that I want to do and be with people that I want to be with. So she's learned very early who she is, what matters most. And it's not about, well, as soon as, that's one of the key words that when I hear that, a flag goes up to say, well, as soon as this happens, Jason, then I'm going to show up. And I don't know if you've heard of the concept, be, do, have, which is to be present, be in the moment. And then I will automatically do the things I love that I'm great at. And then I'll have more time and money, whatever it might be. Well, we here in the West have flipped that. As soon as I have more time, look out. Oh, if I had $1 million, you know what I would do? And so, we flip that to say, okay, well, when I can be, do, have, it all works. But sometimes when I'm stressed, I don't know how to get into be. So in iMatter, we have a process called think, act, be, do, have. And so to make time to think about things, that's why I mentioned I take 5 weekly and the 3-3-1 daily, just to tap into things, because I can almost always think. Then I act on the things that are most important. Then it's much more easy for me to be in the moment. And that's when it all works. But so to answer your question, I think people have to go through it. I think vocabulary is a big part of it. So even, I have to go to work. No, it's I get to go to work. And if I listen and say, but I don't want to, okay, well then what can I shift? Am I in the right business? Do I have the right job? And so to me, if I'm here to teach one thing, it's vocabulary and speaking, from the I, speaking from experience, eliminating the exaggerations, the words better and should. And so as I'm speaking that way to you and practicing on how to have a great relationship, I'm learning how to have a great relationship with myself, because verbiage reflects consciousness. So if I say, I have to go do this, and how come I'm always late, to, hey, you know what? It's often that I'm late, but it was a choice I made and I can make another choice today.
Yeah.
So I just, there's life lessons, and I think learning is happening faster than ever. So I don't think it's, wait till you're 65 and retire and figure it out. It could be a 20-year-old saying, and it's not that I'm going to take less money to do what I want. I'm going to do what I want, where I want. And if it's with the right company and I produce, maybe I can make more money or have more freedom or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And shout out to Procabulary. We're getting, his name escapes me, but the CEO of Procabulary is getting ready to come on. And it's all about what you just talked about. So check that out for sure. He's got a great course. And gosh, I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head, but we haven't had our conversation yet. So, what about like neuro-linguistic programming? Have you looked into that at all? Have you found anything?
Really, it comes up a lot. I feel like I do a lot of that just on my own, but people like, where have you been trained? Well, to me, it's not even the school of hard knocks. It's just the school of life. And that's in learning on mistakes I've made in relationships or things that have gone well, or in business or in leadership or parenting. I don't know anyone who's had a kid before they had their first kid. So we're figuring it out as we go. And so I just think to expedite that learning is key. And so to share that with our kids has been huge. And ultimately, in a couple of years, I've had a program called iMatter for Kids, which helps kids to know they matter. And to it early on to teach them, because they kind of get it. It's after we get programmed from the media, from government, from our parents, from our coaches, that I think we kind of go into put a protective field around ourselves. And it's like, hey man, this is who I am. And so I matter regardless of what you think,
It's funny you say that. I literally just yesterday was thinking about how it seems like we have more wisdom when we're children and when we're older than we do all during the important times of our life. And I think it's self-imposed or, from outside forces. You also seem to be pretty empathetic, which kind of like, would you agree with that? If you seem like you have a good sense of empathy, which probably makes it easier to sort of like, hey, if I talk this way, this happens. If I talk that way, that happens. And then over time, you kind of figure it out. Because I've also kind of dabbled a little bit in NLP, but never like taken courses or whatever. And I think kind of the same way. It's like, I don't know if you ever heard of The Game. The Game was like a dating book for sleazy people to get dates, right? But it was like, you read parts of it, or my friends and I passed it around in the military. And it's like, oh, okay, I see what this is. And I kind of could have gotten there, but you guys just like really like spreadsheeted this thing out and like, not exactly for me. That's so interesting.
Well, one thing to that is, we talk about shift the mindset from am I to I am.
And what does that mean?
So what's going on often in the mind is, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to make my flight tomorrow? Am I going to sell this client? Am I going to ever make it? And so often that is that doubting question. So to shift it to I am, about half of the times, if I say, am I ever going to be happy? You know what? I'm happy right now. Now, I might have another situation, but to shift it to I am, when I say it with that, it's putting out to the universe that it's already happening. So I have to go to work. It's like, I'm going to go add a huge amount of value today. And even in my 331, if it were up to me, today is awesome. So it's, stating it as the positive, as if it already is. So, and I don't know if that's NLP or whatever it might be, but it is, I don't think it's a trick. It's real that I can, the negativity in my head isn't always great. So when I shift it from am I ever to I already am. Am I a great father? Well, I think I am. And as I talk to people, I look at my kids like, you know what? I'm a great father. And that doesn't mean I'm perfect. But when I am a great father is in my head and I do something that doesn't represent that, I catch it much, much quicker. So if I am, like I yell at my kids, which I never thought I would do, but because I know I'm a great father, I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell. I'm sorry. I'm upset. But rather than getting caught in a cycle and spinning out of control, it's catching it sooner and not being caught up in the heat of the moment. So I am a great leader. I am here with you right now. I am a great husband. And then if I'm not doing things to represent that, I catch it sooner. So I am, to me, literally, iMatter. Our logo is the little I, big M. So it's I am. And that is so powerful when people bake that in to say, I'm happy today. It's like, wow. Rather than being worried about the future or regretting the past, I want to learn from the past and I want to be excited about the future, but I'm here right now.
Yeah, that's really great. So when you talk about working with visionaries, hopefully folks that identify as visionaries are listening to this show. What are some of the negative sides of our personality type that can be offset by a good implementer and by a good system?
Cameron Herold, great speaker and author, spoke at a EO global conference years ago. And he had maybe 300 of us in a room. And he said, all right, I'm going to give out 12 traits, personality traits. And after he said, after 5 resonate with you, stand up. And after 5, almost all of us stood up. After the 6th one, all but like 3 of us stood up and we're like, yeah, entrepreneurs, visionaries, whatever. And he said, those were personality traits of bipolar disorder. And he said, if we also maybe have Tourette's, we probably have ADD. And so rather than getting rid of that crazy energy, it's harnessing and using that energy for good and admitting what we're great at and do that more often, and then delegate and empower people to do things we aren't great at. So rather than getting better at things I'm not good at, I'd rather hire someone who's great or delegate to them. So that's where a system and a process is there. I realized that I think a lot of visionaries, we can really impact people, and it can be for positive or we can blow people up. And so we've got to be really careful. So that safe space, that vocabulary is huge. Taking a deep breath, being empathetic. So often I'm caught in the future that I don't realize that I just blasted someone because I'm already over here. So to be present, again, our big role to me in the business is the energy of the company. So it's that excitement, but it is that people. And we are usually good at inspiring and mentoring, but not managing usually. So just slow down is a big thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, Bob, there's 2 things that I ask every guest that comes on the show, and I'm going to ask them to you now. Yep. Number 1, if you had access to unlimited capital resources, how would you profitably grow your business or businesses or your message, whatever that may be?
It's using the latest technology and space. So to me, technology it's here, it's not going anywhere, but I don't want to be solely dependent on it. So, but using technology to remind us and give us access and to teach, but to have physical spaces where we can be and we can have, retreat centers where we can teach kids to, again, be in a community of love and respect and growth. And so profitably, I would say it would mainly be do it first class, invest the money. And then again, there is something about the technology to be able to spread the word, some of the tools I'm talking about, being able to share it with people. But testing it. So it's too often I've gone down the rabbit hole and all of a sudden $500,000 later, I realize it's not profitable. So to test, to listen, to see what the next step is. And we're in the process now of saying, physical locations are huge, especially around nature, and having a place where we have some structure to tap into our hearts and to know who we are. So to me, it's, on a grander scale, I'm doing this, but with unlimited resources, it would be space, technology, non-censorship, support, love. And I also feel, it's a new world. And so I'm not sure of the how, as Dan Sullivan, it's the who, not how. So I'm
Yeah.
surrounding myself now with these amazing people that understand this or that or the other thing. And so a lot of us are starting to come together to say, what can we do to step into this world that we're at? When I mentioned the wisdom age earlier, it's the wisdom up here and in here. And so if I have a safe space to share, I hear my own wisdom and I hear your wisdom. And Dr. Bill Isaacs wrote a book called Dialogue, and it's about the art of learning together. So to create spaces where we can learn together and to enjoy and have great conversations. So the profitability, I think, is a test, listen, and then, pivot or grow. But I think space is a big key.
Yeah, I agree. And to your point earlier about, being, and I forget the order of it, but do the things that are valuable.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you just do that, the profitability seems to come with that.
Exactly. I mentioned the Visionary Summit. We have one coming up in April. We're doing it twice a year, another one in September. And that's, 30 visionaries come together. And we have this beautiful space we're renting in Detroit. And we're on a rooftop deck. And then we're at the top of the 80-story building, and so it's experiential, it's summit, it's different, it's anchoring it in. And so that to me, again, is to take a deep breath, retreat, and then don't come back to your life. It's this new life, it's because we're shifting and growing. Yeah, back to the grind. I mean, that to me has no relevance anymore.
I love it, man. Okay, so the second question is, if you had to give up all of the businesses you currently have and have had in the past and start something totally new, what do you think that might be?
That's a good question. Again, I think that comes back to the space thing, is to set up spaces, because I don't have that today.
Yeah.
Again, I think my biggest passion is helping kids who still believe in magic and love. One of the greatest statements I've ever heard was my 4-year-old son 12 years ago, as we're talking about spirit and this and that. He goes, I get it, Dad. Love is magic and magic is God. I'm like, wow, that's pretty profound. And then he did the 4-year-old thing. I said, but I have a question. I said, what's that, son? And he said, can God hear us fart? I said, oh, good. That's a very good question. But it's tapping into, and again, that's where I'm moving toward anyways, but to help with the kids to know they matter, especially with everything that's going on in the world. The parents are stressed, the teachers are stressed, the coaches are stressed, and the kids are getting caught up in that. So somehow to create either, and I don't think it's alternative schooling, but somehow to be able to have a place where kids know they matter and they can experience magic and love. And again, we beat that out of ourselves in today's society, that you don't matter unless you have money. You don't matter unless you get all A's. You don't know. It's like, I am me here right now and I matter. And so it's ultimately, I guess to create something new would be something around the kids.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times from people I respect that have had some success in other venues, and they're like 100% education, kids, helping people that are the next generation. I think that's wisdom incarnate. So really great answer. Bob, before we let you go, one more time, where can we find you? When's your book coming out? What's it called? How do we buy it? How do we get involved in this summit? Tell me everything, anything that you want to drop.
So go to iMatter.com, imatter.com, and that is the place for all things visionary. So that's where you can, ultimately, we're going to have the online course for iMatter, but that's where you can sign up for the Visionary Forum, which is twice a month. We have the Visionary Summit, which is twice a year. We have Go to the Mountain, which is twice a year now, and that's going to be expanding. The book is called Unscatter the Chatter, and in the next few days, so that'll be on the website as well. To order that, that's going to be coming out in early summer. It's going to be an overnight success that took 20 years, but that's ultimately to help people to unscatter the chatter and to, again, shift that mindset to today is great, life is great. There's a lot of crazy things out there that can kind of lead me astray or cause me to drift, but it's unscattering the chatter to be present here right now. So iMatter.com is the main place. And we're growing our community and learning from each other, and hopefully we'll get more people to check it out.
Coach Bob, thank you for being present here right now, buddy. This was a really great conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. You're welcome to come back anytime if you have anything else you'd like to get out, or maybe we'll have you back on just to have a hang.
All right, Jason, I appreciate you and appreciate the opportunity, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.